Right, 25 minutes past 8. Vinny Perth is with us. Vinny, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are we doing?
We should start with Rovers because it was important that they finally click. Stephen Bradley was saying that he knew the performances had been good up to this and that the difference was that they were actually taking their chances last week against Dundalk. Was the difference not that they didn't have a man sent off and the opposition did, though?
I suppose the answer is yes. To be honest with you, the first 25 minutes at Dundalk were probably the better side, to be fair. Dundalk played quite well. Then the sending off changed the game, albeit Rovers were winning at that stage. So it's one of them where I've been saying for a while, I think Rovers have been playing really, really well. But ironically, up until the sending off, I think Dundalk were playing the better. And I think to sum it up, Dundalk have played better this year or played worse and won. And Rovers have played better and lost or dropped points. So it was a strange game. The sending off changed it to a point, but to be fair to Shamrock Rovers, they were winning 1-0 at that stage.
There is a possibility that we look back on the early part of the season where Rovers had those sending offs and difficult results, and it just looks completely out of character for the rest of the year. And a season can turn so quickly where they had no confidence because they weren't getting results, even though the performance was good. And now, off the back of this, they score 4 and a dam is broken.
Yeah, it feels that way. I also think their bench the other night was Gannon, Lopez, Finn, Watts, Burke, Aaron Green and young lad Poom, who looks a hell of a good player, and they've left him out in a couple of away games because getting to another league. So they had a real strength and depth. It felt like it was a real, as you said, the dam opened the other night. It felt the real Rovers are back to me watching the game. Now I was watching it back after the result, but it felt like it was a real sort of statement performance and result, and I would say I think they'll kick on from here. Albeit a difficult game this week, but I think they'll kick on from here, and they looked the real deal for me on Friday in terms of how they won the game.
They've been threatening that though, haven't they? Like they just, as Stephen Bradley said after the match, they just took their chances for the first time. Like they've had games where maybe they could have had decent wins, but just couldn't put the ball in the net.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is, to be fair to Dundalk, they were down to 10 men, and then once that happened, and Dundalk had Pat Hoban missing through injury late in the day, so they weren't overly tested because of the two of those issues. So we'll see. It looks like I feel they've turned the corner. I said they would, and in many ways you sort of hope they would. They're the best side in the league, I think. So it looks like they've turned the corner. But look, they have conceded 4 against Cork. They have had men sent off, and it's hard to argue with some of those decisions as well. They have misperformed at times. They have let Pats into a game where they should have won it comfortably. They have let Derry beat them in Tallaght as well, so they have opened the door for other teams, and it's made for a better league, I think.
Definitely,
yeah,
it definitely has.
So
if it had been
good.
possession at this stage, it would have been, obviously Bohs and Rovers is always going to sell out, but it's now it's on Virgin, and
there's a big game feel about it.
Yeah, and it's really important for the league that. It would be great if Rovers put in a good performance for the league and still don't win this game, just so that everybody's like, oh, there's going to be a long form reason to focus on this, and it's not going to be a procession.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial that every opportunity we get to showcase the league. Sometimes I'm critical because it's very easy to be everything is great in the league. It's brilliant. It's fine. It's great. I think some people are guilty of that. I think we've got to call out what we see. Just because grounds are selling out in 4,500-5,000, there's still so many parts of a game to improve, and we all know. I was in Tolka Park the other night, so Derry City fans, and I've said it before, they're brilliant away fans to sit beside and listen to them. They travelled for 3.5 hours. They stood on an open, and anyone that was in around Dublin on Friday night, they stand on an open terrace, and effectively you could have had a fire hydrant hose poured on top of their head. That's how bad the rain was, and they stood there for 2 or 3 hours. We have to improve all of that stuff. So this is another chance to showcase our game. Rovers are the pinnacle of it at the moment in terms of the last, in terms of what they have, in terms of their squad, their ground, other teams, and Bohs are well on the way of catching them off the pitch as well. So I just hope it's a great night. Hope it's, as you said, really good performance, and a lot of these games have been, just to sort of bring it up, a lot of these games over the last few years a referee's decision has been crucial in it. So that's what I hope doesn't happen this week.
Tuffer's been talking about the referees. We talk about that in a minute, right? But how do the two teams match up? Like, styles make fights.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. The Rovers will play the normal system with their sort of 3-5-2, whatever way you want to call that, with probably Gaffney up front with Johnny Kenny, who's starting to find his feet. Johnny Kenny, 21 international at Celtic. A lot of Irish players have really struggled at Celtic, but Johnny Kenny has really, really impressed me since he's come back, and he's playing week in, week out. His movement for young players interested in football, his movement off the ball is exceptional. He goes in behind a lot, and it's something that you say to young players, go and watch Evan Ferguson, whatever, English players, but sometimes when there's one in front he's staring at you, I think it's important that people can watch him. So he's been excellent. Gaffney will cause Bowes a lot of problems. He operates up front, but falls into that sort of left position, and Rovers are really strong in the middle. But I've been saying it here for a while, I think Bowes' recruitment, particularly in central midfield, has been really good. McManus in midfield looks a hell of a good player. Adam MacDonald has given him huge energy in there. I imagine Flores wasn't playing the other day. I don't know what the injury is, if he makes it. And obviously Burke needs to come back into that sort of midfield for them. So I think the midfield area is crucial for Bowes. So that's where the win and losing the game is. We spoke about Johnny Afolabi a couple of weeks ago. He's really hit form. He looks like one of those strikers who's really frustrated because he wants to score more goals, but he's playing exceptional and giving them a real sort of platform. And one sort of player to watch, has that bit of magic, particularly in big games, is Ali Coote on Friday. His form has been exceptional for Bowes, and he could cause Rovers a lot of problems.
You mentioned Poom as someone who hasn't been put in by Bradley for away games. Understandably, I guess, as you say, trying to get used to the league. But a lot of the new signings, and I think we spoke about this earlier in the season as well, he wasn't throwing them into the big games because he was like, well, let them sit in the bench and watch. Is that still something that Stephen Bradley's kind of sticking to?
I think there's a couple of things. Yeah, I think he has done that a little bit with Poom, but someone like Richie Towell went up to Oriel Park and was really, really good. Richie Towell played against Shelbourne at that time away in Tolka, and what was a heavy pitch. So there has been certainly there's certainly a bit of horses for courses. Yeah. Again, the pitches at the moment, some of them are difficult to play on. Tolka the other night, obviously the heavens opened up, but Tolka tonight was really difficult, and so yeah, it is horses for courses. That's why I said Burke for Bowes a minute ago. What I meant was Buckley. Jesus, but Keith Buckley coming back into the Bowes team is like horses for courses. You could see he's been on the bench the last week or two. I think he's had a bit of an injury. You could see Declan Devine bringing him into that team, and there is a little bit of that, and people knowing the league, knowing the atmosphere, so he'll probably will go again with sort of the League of Ireland players.
I know obviously it's a derby and all the fire and passion that brings, but is there a little bit of Bowes that is thinking, yeah, draw suit us fine, and does that seep into decision making on the pitch? How do you prevent that? Because
I'll tell you how you prevent it. Bowes play Rovers on Friday and Derry on Monday. I think if they've two positive results, a win in one of them and a draw or whatever, I think you have to almost say with quarter of the season gone, they could do a Leicester City and win a league title. So it depends on your aspirations as a club and the manager. And I think if he sets out his team, go and win this game, well, the rest could be history. So it is a big moment for them to say, we can do this. We can do this, yeah. And I think it's not like, in many ways, Rovers are the Man City of League of Ireland, but they're not that far ahead that a team can't come from the pack and catch them and overtake them. And I'd like to think that's the mindset of. I get the impression that's the mindset of Declan. I don't know him that well, but I know of him. He's worked in around Derry, and I'd like to think he's thinking, if we get 4 points out of the weekend, we could go and win a league title. And why not?
The way the league fixtures have put them up against Rovers and Derry over Easter, it's like, these are big games.
Yeah, but like, to be honest with you, as a coach, as a manager, as a player, what a weekend ahead of you. If you've no matter what, you're a League of One player, you're losing your Easter weekend. Well then, what's the second prize playing Rovers on a Friday and Derry on a Monday? It's not bad.
How important is it that the game is on Virgin? That like there's an opportunity here if it goes well and there's a bit of sport. Now, look, it is a bank holiday, and so I don't know what the viewership figures are going to be like, but
yeah, and I think the viewer figures aren't overly important in many ways, because you've also got a huge game with Leinster on this weekend as well. So, look, I'm one that, albeit every bit of TV or exposure helps, I'm one that we have to get a house in order before we start banging down the door and complaining about RTE and TV3 not showing our games. We've got to get things a little bit better first, and that will come. All of that stuff will come naturally, I think. And I think clubs have started to do that. We're not there yet. So I go back to the first game of the season down at Turner's Cross, and I looked. And it's not that I look. The best way to put it is, I spoke to someone from outside of the league who watches a lot of football. He's a scout for an English club, and he said the pitch looked terrible. So, what's Dalymount Park going to be like in terms of the visuals of it, all that stuff? And when all of that stuff improves, I think TV will follow by its nature.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the be all and end all. I think we have it's almost, it used to be a cult to follow League of Ireland. Now it's a little bit more.
It's on the verge of breaking out.
Acceptable, nearly. Is that the right word?
Yeah. It's indie as opposed to cult.
Yeah. So it's just growing, and I don't think it's the be all and end all just to be on TV.
No, it's not. But I don't know if you've seen. Have you seen North Circular yet? The documentary about the North Circular Road.
No, not yet.
There's a scene at Bowes. I think it's a Bowes Rovers game, actually.
It is, yeah.
And it's just stuff that I haven't seen on TV before, right? Now, obviously, it's a brilliant documentary maker who has lovingly crafted this, and so therefore it's art, right? And I don't expect art from my TV coverage, but the immersion of the fans being central to the story of the football, like, it's very attractive, and it's a way for the league to sell itself, and maybe the league needs to do this independently of the broadcasters and just start like, this is what the atmosphere is.
But
really
it's
like,
only one leg of the stool is the TV part, and it's not the most important part. That's the point and the
facilities are obviously incredibly important.
Everything, and give you like
football and a
30-second League of Ireland history. Rovers were effectively homeless in the last 20 years. They now have a beautiful stadium, best team on the pitch. It was fan-led. It was people got off, put their own money into their pocket, drove this club on to being what they are today, and then they got the help of the council and different bits and pieces, and outside investment now has come in, and they sit on the top of the tree. Bowes are going through the same process. They nearly went bust. They nearly went out of business. People got involved and helped them and grow. And that's where these clubs are grown from. You go up to Sligo, the fundraising up there is exceptional. So when we get all of this and we're able to come to the top table and speak to the head of the RTE with a real product, we can demand a bit more, or whether it's Virgin, and people are actually competing for a product. And we're getting close to that. We're just not there yet, but we're very close to it.
It's chicken and egg stuff, isn't it, really? Because you're saying there, like, once the facilities and stuff improve and the visuals, that the TV cameras will come, but shouldn't the TV cameras come first, and maybe then the interest and everything else and the finances are drummed up?
Yeah, no, and in case I'm not explaining myself properly, the more they're there, the better.
Yeah.
Just keep doing what we're doing, keep improving, and I think they'll come naturally. And I think, listen, I think RTE have a responsibility to show a certain amount of football from Irish football, local football. They'd say they do a little bit of that, but we have a responsibility to give them something to do. So don't expect the cameraman to stand on top of a chipper van, for argument's sake, and record something.
Yeah.
So let's all grow together, and I think that's the key to it. And if we try and be balanced in our arguments about League of Ireland, I think people might listen to us a little bit better.
There's news in the papers today that a verbal agreement has been reached between the council and Shelbourne for Shelbourne to get the lease for Talca Park, which would secure the long-term future for Talca Park. It's going to cost a lot of money, and so the club are going to have to find a way to finance that, and obviously they've been connected with outside investment, and there has been some there's been some change anyway in the management structure there recently, so we're uncertain about where that's going, but it seems like it's going in the right direction, hopefully. And Duffer was asked about it in the press conference, and he was a bit uncertain about potential new owners dictating to the manager how to play. You'd really hope that doesn't happen. You'd really hope that if new owners come in, they're looking...
Yeah, I think the whole city manager made a lazy comment around the time when Dundalk were coming in about, well, we should all play the same way if we're the same club. That was a lazy comment. I'm sure he probably regrets it, and whatever about, like, people would say on the outside, oh, you have to be your own man and all that stuff. If you're part of an organisation, fine, grand. People don't understand that part. You look at Chelsea now. There's one man in charge, and the story. There always has been, but at the same time, you can't. That sounded nonsense, and no League One club would accept that. And I think that might be a big part of why that deal ultimately fell through. That type of commentary. So, but at the same time, what Shells need to do is spend a hell of a lot of money. There's an amazing stand there that's is not certified for use at the back of one of the goals, yet the ground sells out. So it's not perfect. A lot of money to be spent down in Talca Park, and I just hope the finance can be found from somewhere to do that. So the council don't seem to be on board with that. They want the Dalymount as the sort of number one site in that area. So it will be difficult for them to get to where they need to be. Yeah,
they'll be doing it independently, really. But if they own it, then at least they can start funding it from the lottery and
but there's not a huge history of independently owned Irish clubs doing a great job of that. That's the fear.
Yeah. It's definitely a difficult path that they're going, but that was part of the Save Talca movement, and they've decided that. Duffer's point about the referees.
It was a big weekend for referees in terms of where we're at. I was at that game. I wasn't overly in love with Duffer's comments. Like, I'm a big fan of Damien's and what he's done for the league, and he is box office. But it's like, and a couple of referees might choke on their coffee this morning. They were listening, hearing me defend them. But we live in a world of social media now where there's no context on any decision made. We don't see the referee's report. Paddy Barrett was sent off. Everyone has seen it online at this stage. What looks innocuous enough challenge. I was at the game, and this is, hindsight's wonderful, but the guy I was sitting beside will come into court and verify that I said this to him. They made a change at half time, took off Luke Bourne, and maybe he was injured, and I was going, I'd have been worried about Paddy Barrett. He was on a yellow card. He'd made 2 or 3 difficult challenges, and I don't know whether that played into the decision to send him off. So for context, it was difficult. You've got
it's a persistent really good fouling issue as much as anything.
It could have been.
Right.
I don't know, but that's what I'm saying. For context, we've no way known. If you watch the clip, the referee's on the wrong side of it. So I would say the fourth official was probably involved in the decision. But Paul McLaughlin, who's being name checked, I wouldn't like to name anyone, because referees are amateur now or part time, where a lot of people are in the league now are full time. But Paul McLaughlin is regarded in the league as a really, really good referee. And remember, there was one big decision. Right, the whole crowd wanted, in the 92nd minute, Shelbourne player goes down, everyone wanted a penalty. He said no, and he was dead right, it wasn't a penalty. So he made a really good decision in the middle of that game, and people ignored it. But it was a difficult night for referees.
The dangerous thing as well is it can, and this isn't Duffer's, he probably wasn't thinking about this at the time, it can cause a pile-on sometimes. You mentioned social media as well, but I know Paul McLaughlin, the referee, from that. Like, he's based in Monaghan, he was a Garda, but from Donegal originally, I think it is. But like, thoroughly decent man, and then you think about the fact that, you know, he's going home to his family or whatever else, and it's tough then when the manager has called you out after the match. Look, if a referee makes a mistake, fair enough. Yeah, but I think then you might encourage piles on.
Yeah, there's a lot of unbalanced. Like, people are saying, oh, there's more yellow cards in the game, all of that stuff. There has been a sort of in-depth look at this, and the last real sort of, we're running at about 5.01 yellow cards, believe it or not, at the moment after 7 games. But last time there was a real investigation into this a couple of years ago. That would leave you sort of mid-table of about 72 leagues across the world that was done. Okay. So Spain would be about 5.3. Serie A, which would be a lot of fouls in, would be about 4.95. We over a season in our league last year would be 4 point something in the mid. But the problem is, you go back to what we compare ourselves to. Scotland would be about 4.0. League 1 and 2 would be 3 point something of a yellow card, right?
So statistically, slightly more permissive.
But I think our referees, and I'm not speaking for them, they have to speak for themselves. I think our referees are more European. They want to be European refs. A lot of them are European refs, and they referee to a European style. So you can't compare it to English football.
Okay.
Slightly different in terms of their management of games. But we have got an issue. We have a real issue around referees. We've got some top-class referees, but we don't have real strength and depth in it. And a lot of managers have made the same comments as Damien, but they obviously didn't grab the same headlines. And unfortunately, that's the key to it.
It's really an issue in all sports. It's particularly bad in football because there's a culture where you're allowed to say basically anything about referees, and there might be a slight slap on the wrist, and in some leagues you get fined or you get banned for a game, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really change managers' behaviours. Yeah,
and I've complained about referees. I've done it in press, but I'd like to think, and
do you regret that now, looking back?
But I regretted it at the time in many ways. I remember a key decision went against me when we played Shamrock Rovers. I ultimately think that cost Dundalk, when I went back, European football. Should have been sending off in a red card. But when I went into the press conference at that stage, I think social media had started where I said we should have got a decision, and but I was very balanced on my view of that decision at the time. And when the press conference ended, I actually said there was 4 or 5 of the normal press guys, that decision is terrible, but I can't go overboard now. I think the ref is going to get piled on tomorrow when you see it back. So you have to be conscious of that a little bit. But at the same time, then, and I'm going to use there's an example, a great example where Tim Clancy was sent off against Rovers 2 weeks ago, and it was his team. Tim was under. And I'm be careful of my language here, but Tim was under a little bit of pressure. Pats had a couple of bad results. Fans weren't happy the week before. They were 2-1 down to Rovers, and they scored a late goal in the 88th odd minute. A handball happens right in front of his bench. Sean Hoare controls. It looks like it hit his hand. I felt it didn't. Actually, the guy next to me felt it did. Right. So there's the difficulty of referees. Sean Hoare clips into the box and chants a wonderful save by the goal. Tim goes mental with the fourth official. Because it's a huge moment for him in his career as a manager, for Pats as a club.
It's life or death. It feels like in the moment.
It feels like it, and the emotion and I've been there. I've been in that difficult situation. He walks away and he kicks a water bottle, and we're talking about the 92nd minute of a game. That's brilliant. That game was stopped. Referee comes over, gives him a red card.
Yeah.
Then subsequent corner. Rovers almost score again. Sean Hoare has a half volley that hits the keeper, an amazing save. Like, Tim's fighting for his club, his team, his everything. And over the years, I've seen that happen. And the best refs pretend they don't see that. They just pretend he didn't see him kicking the water bottle, and they understand the moment.
Okay.
And that's where there's a balance in all of this, where we've got some really top referees. And I'd say, to give you one example, the best ref in this league is probably the worst fourth official, right? And for reasons of, he's just brilliant. He'll make the decision. There's no bias in him. There's no nothing. When he has a job to do, he does it. But he probably doesn't mix with some of the managers, some of them, well enough. That's just life. I'm just saying, people like me, some people don't like me. And it's about finding that balance. But slaughtering referees and saying it's about assessors. There's been assessors since 20 years in League of Ireland. There's assessors when you play in Europe. There's assessors everywhere. And we've got to find a balance in this and protect the refs. It's the hardest job in football, probably. You debate Harry Kane the other day. We'll debate penalty decisions. I've done it here all over in a day. And we need referees, or else you don't have a game, and we've got to be careful about our language.
The footballers and football managers in the League of Ireland or in any league don't understand how, or don't know how difficult the job of a referee is. Like we saw years ago, didn't Carragher and Neville go off and become linesmen for a day, and they were afterwards were like, Jesus, so much more respect. Like, that is tough, you know, your minute calls in a split second. So I don't know if there's a way for
Well, we used to sit down at the start of the season and talk to them, and there was when the handball stuff came in, you know, just leading to a goal, that was explained a little bit and different things. But to be fair to the FEI, where they get a lot of criticism, they've invested in a package from Estonia called RefPal, okay? And what RefPal, we've got Y Scout instead as coaches, as managers, and they've got RefPal, they've bought this. So there is improvement going on with referees, where the decisions are analysed, where they get video links of all the decisions they made, what led up to, and different things. So there is investment and there is improvements coming, but there's no doubt there's shortage and there's a lack of strength and depth. But I think part of the challenge with referees and coaches is someone who now able to look from the outside in, sitting in a lot of stands, looking over what's happening and saying there needs to be relationship building. And I think that was what the League of Ireland was good at back in the day. The best ref, Alan Kelly and Ian Stokes back in the day. Anyone that knows League of Ireland will know them too. Alan's now working in the MLS as head of referees, and I think that's missed.
Yeah, no harm getting them back into the system, even just as like consultants or.
Yeah, well, Ian Stokes, for example, still works in it, and a lot of the ex-refs you'd see them at games. Yeah.
The rest of the fixtures: Pats are at home to Cork, UCD at home to Shelbourne, Dundalk at home to Sligo. This is the Friday fixtures, obviously, and then Bohs Rovers and Derry City against Drogheda. Look, the Bohs Rovers one obviously is the headline fixture there, but everybody else needs to keep going about their business, particularly Derry. Like, it's a big weekend for them as well. You would expect them to beat Drogheda at home, and then if they were to go and win against Bohs on Monday night, equally they were the ones who at the end of it have 6 points. You're like, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what we expected.
I think Derry need to catch fire a little bit at the moment. I think they were just okay against Shelbourne the other day. Ryan Graydon is in excellent form. It just needs to catch fire, because while Rovers have been dropping points, you just need to keep building a lead. So a big game for them this weekend. Cork, UCD look like they're going to be cut adrift, so that battle for second place is sort of really important. Cork, Rory Keaton is playing really well for them, so they need to keep building, and I think the next transfer window will be important for Cork. But it's continuing to grow. I was at Talcott Park the other night. It wasn't a great game of football, but it was there's something about it, something special. Like, listen, and then I watched Sligo and Bohs on Saturday night, and I'll never get them 2 hours of my life back. So that's football. It happens. We have to live and breathe it, but it is what it is. But again, brilliant night for Bohs on Saturday night, and what a big weekend for them. They're going to be tested now that they haven't been tested before, I feel. And we can confirm that Evan Ferguson's a Man United fan. Well, I'd say, put it this way, his father is a Man United fan, but his mother's from Coventry. He could sign for Coventry any day. Right. There you go. You heard it here first. Vinny, good stuff. Thanks a million.